Okay, well, are we on? I'm assuming we're on because the screen's up. Okay. All right, welcome to the, let's see, the April 19th, 2022 City Planning Commission meeting. And on our agenda, let's see, call to the roll call, Mark Klecker here. Jason here. Rich, you on Zoom?
He is.
He is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
I'm moving on that.
Is Tony?
No.
No. Okay, and you said Amanda's not, correct?
Correct.
And Colin?
Colin is on.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right. Everybody read the minutes from last month. Are there any corrections or issues with the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I get a second?
So moved.
All right. Okay. All right. The Harbor Place. Want to come on up and just kind of let us know what you've done since last month?
Sure. My name is Mike Sanford, 4721 Atlantic Avenue. And since our last meeting, the location of the proposed Soaring Eagle was adjusted due to an electrical easement. And so we shifted the tower, the pole, to the west on our revised site plan. And as it shifted west, the ride got longer from north to south. So we did update our site plan, and we provided it to the zoning office. I believe he circulated it. We also had Dahlkemper update their landscaping plan, and I sent it to Jake, and I believe he circulated it as well. On the site plan that I submitted, we took this opportunity to shade in green anything that was open space right now, just to generally depict where the open space is, both north and south of Front Street. It's about 4 acres or so, 4.3, I believe, on the plan. We also went ahead and actually overlaid the 2014 illustrated areas as well on that open space, just because there was a question where those are on the plan, and so we went ahead and did that. We showed 3 of the 4. And just to update you on a few things, last week we met with the zoning hearing board here. We presented our case for the height variance, and that was approved. My office also submitted to engineering, to Jason Sayers, a request for an aerial easement crossing Front Street. Those 2 items were, if you will, conditions on your last meeting. I just wanted to let you know we are responding to those 2 conditions. So we're just here today to present our updated plan, provide you updates of what we've been doing with the project, and I'm unclear whether it's required by your board to reapprove it or recommend it, or if I'm just here providing.
You're just here as an information, just letting us know what you've done.
So if you have any questions for me, I'll certainly be here. I believe you have our revised drawings.
Yeah.
If you have any questions.
All right. Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick
Sure.
one. Just, I take no issue with it, but just wondering, the new line of the zip line, it goes over top of the canopy of the hotel?
Correct.
How much clearance?
When it crosses Front Street, it's 100 feet in the air. That canopy is 1 story.
Plenty of room. How far from the corner of the hotel?
Horizontally,
Yeah.
it's probably 15 to 20 feet, something in that range.
Nice.
It's gonna be interesting to.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our West Bayfront plan.
Yeah, I think they're going to get the slides up. There they are. Anna, as you're walking to the podium, so we can get you. Are you going to speak from the podium?
Wait a minute. What's up, Ed?
Before we start, can we comment on what you just heard from the harbor area on the Zoom line?
Absolutely.
Ed Kissel, 2815 Sigsbee. On the proposed site of the Zoom, which is on their 4-acre parcel, they have shown a park in the southwest corner. Also, where the Zoom ends on the north side, there is a green area that showed a 1/2 acre park along the water's edge, which has now been approved by City Council to be the golf course. That 1/2 acre was shown on the 2013 plans and the 2018 approvals. But my comments on this is that you people reviewed different things that were fed to you or presented to the boards, be the design and be the planning commission, of proposals that would take place. And I know changes have been made to the plan, but I believe when it involves the public parks and the pledges that the developer made to get this approved, in my opinion, that should be looked at very cautiously when things are changed, especially the public areas. There is I don't want to call it disagreement between what the Scots presented as open space versus tangible green space that the people could stand on. And my example of that would be that the Scots got a 3-height increase in their height of their building, and the zoning hearing board at the time that they approved it, it came out to about 25,000 square additional feet. That, in my opinion, should have been green space, tangible green space, because they took and they built that building up 3 stories of tangible building. You don't call that the term they used is open space. That is no longer open space. That's constructed space. So all I'm saying, to be fair to the public, when these things are presented, I believe the boards involved, the design, the planning, and when City Council hears this, the developer, I don't want to call them bait and switch, but in this case, the public was told and shown diagrams of the different areas. There's 3 areas of properties that the Scots have shown on their plans. There's a 5-acre site, which is from Front Street going north to the concrete, and basically from the convention library over to State Street, and parcel number 2, which is 4 feet, is the south side of Front Street, basically from the smokestack to State Street. Both these areas is where the zip line is going to go in order to facilitate that movement. And on none of the plans and any of the construction has the public amenities been put in. There are 3 parks on the north side on the 5 acres and 1 on the south side, and none of those have been put in. So I'd ask the Planning Commission to send a memo to City Council looking at additional conditions be put on these properties to at least do something for the public that was shown for the public amenities. So that is my pitch, other than the sidewalk where the zip line is going in on the south side from where it ends basically by the hotel, that sidewalk be continued over to the library sidewalk to provide a safe walkway for the general public on the south side of Front Street from State Street over to the library area. So I'd like, if they would look at something like that to help provide a safer traffic pattern along that Front Street area. So again, variances were given for the plan, and now the plan is looked at being changed. It's the largest plan currently on the Bayfront that's being developed. Whatever happens over at the GAF site, that's about 12 acres also. So you're going to have parallel types of things, and I just asked the Planning Commission, Design Review, and the city to look at what the developer promised the people and then put a carrot up. And now we have what I'm going to refer to as a bait and switch on what was told to the public to what actually the public is getting. And amenities have gone in. There's been the hotel, there's been the beer garden, there's a restroom, and now a golf course, all on that parcel of the 5 acres on the north side. And there's not been one public amenity per what was presented to the general public at the different meetings that were presented to the public. So thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Okay,
You ready to move on to?
yes.
As Anna's, I think we're going to pivot to you now. As Anna's coming up, just a little background on what's being presented to you. As you're aware, the city has been, since 2018, has been working on these neighborhood strategic plans to identify how the city can help support revitalization of our neighborhoods. And in the 3 cases that have been brought before you, we're finishing up Fairmont McClellan, those are city-initiated plans. There are neighborhood organizations like our West Bayfront, who's here today, who have their own neighborhood strategic plans. So in cases like that, this is actually our guinea pig case. We wanted to follow a similar sort of adoption process that we have in the city-initiated plans. And Anna's here to talk about their plans. And that's been our protocol since we started, is to let the neighborhood groups who've completed plans, we support their implementation of their plans. So this is sort of the first time that that we have a neighborhood group that's updating a plan, and now they're coming before you to review it, and then we'll take it through the process of getting it adopted as part of a sort of a comprehensive strategic neighborhood vision for the city.
All right.
Thank you, Kathy, for that great context. How do I switch slides
We're
here?
ready to start the slideshow. There we go. And then I think you can just say switch slides.
slide,
Yeah,
back to the-
I'm not in charge of it, so.
Okay, great. So as Kathy said, I'm Anna France. I'm the director of our West Bayfront. I'm joined by 2 of our board members. Candace Battles is the chairperson of our board of directors, and Jason Wazorek is also on the board. And then Marissa Litzenberg is our AmeriCorps Vista. And as Kathy said, we want to share the work that we've been doing. I'll provide a little context of the work that's happened in the West Bayfront over the past 5 years, but really thinking ahead to what the next 5 years looks like and how we hope to collaborate with the city on some of the projects that have been identified through our planning process. So next slide, please. Okay, great. This is a weird setup for me, so I'm going to figure out how to make this work. So our West Bayfront began back in 2012 as a collaboration among West Bayfront residents, Gannon University, HANS, the Martin Luther King Center. And through a multi-year process of conversations with neighbors and with other community stakeholders, that led to the creation of the first Our West Bayfront Community Plan, which was ultimately completed in 2016. That happened just sort of coincidentally to be about the same time that Erie Refocused was being developed. And it was the creation of that plan that was able to launch our West Bayfront as a nonprofit organization. OWB was incorporated in 2016. I was hired as the first staff person in 2017. We've doubled our capacity. We've got Marissa and myself as staff people. So we're a pretty small organization, but we rely very heavily on the involvement of the board of directors and a number of volunteers. And the work we do it is to achieve our mission of enhancing the quality of life in the West Bayfront neighborhoods, and it's guided by our community plan with strong input by the community every step of the way. Our footprint is sort of loosely shown on that, or sort of abstractly shown with that little map there. So basically, we serve the neighborhoods that are directly to the west of downtown Erie, Sassafras Street on the east side, down to West 12th Street, over to the Bayfront Parkway. And there's the aerial, perfect. Home to about a little under 13,000 residents now, and about 121 blocks, I believe. Well over 100 businesses within that footprint, but it's primarily residential. So very broadly, I'm not going to cover every detail of what we've done for the last 5 years, but just very generally, our focus has been in kind of 4 key areas. So assisting property owners with repairs. We've helped well over 100 property owners with repairs to their homes and businesses. Acquiring and renovating vacant properties. Enhancing parks and public spaces. So that's everything from city parks to small pocket parks to just streetscape areas. And then also strengthening neighborhood relationships, creating activities in public spaces, in parks, and providing support for neighborhood watch groups and other volunteer groups. Next slide. So just some of the sort of metrics and impact that has come out of this work. So as I said, over 120 properties have been assisted with hundreds of thousands of dollars of grant financing that we've sought and then channeled into the neighborhood. And that's leveraged considerable amount of owner investment in properties. We've seen a 25% increase in the properties rated as excellent and good during that time, and a 60% decrease in properties rated as unsound. We have renovated 3 vacant properties ourselves, and we've got 3 additional properties that are in development or pre-development. Working closely with the city, we've made over $400,000 of investments in city-owned parks, as well as created 2 pocket parks, done public artwork, engaged hundreds of volunteers, installed security cameras, there's lighting projects, sidewalk replacement. So it's really a little bit of everything, but all of these things are intended to, again, improve the quality of life in all the numerous ways that need to be done in the community. Next slide, please. So Kathy explained a little bit about sort of the planning process and the update that we have recently completed. So our original plan was developed in 2016, as I mentioned. It was brought about by the collaboration I mentioned. There was a consultant brought in and put together a fantastic, very detailed plan, and we still rely on that plan. But because the plan was developed kind of before a lot of changes that have happened, I mean, it was done before there was a nonprofit organization to lead this work, which is a pretty important thing. Before the city, I think, was nearly as engaged as it currently is in neighborhood redevelopment. Before a pandemic, there's been a lot of changes. So we wanted to take an opportunity to do an update to that plan, to really pull out what are the most important initiatives and priorities that we should be focusing on over the next 5 years, and really kind of go deeper in the conversations with neighborhood residents on those things. So sort of the second half of last year, we engaged in the planning process update. Yeah, next slide, please. And generally, it was a process that sort of, in some ways, was similar to the first round. We talked to residents. We surveyed nearly 400 residents, a mix of online and in-person surveys. We had individual interviews with community members, group discussions with our board and with our advisory committee and with some other neighborhood watch groups, and really just tried to get a sense of what are the key issues that people are seeing, where would they like to us to focus our resources and our time, and kind of fed that into this planning update. Next slide. So there were 6 sort of key areas that emerged from this process, and again, these tie back to our original plan, so we're not changing that original document, but pulling out what are the greatest priorities. So a lot around the issue of housing, that hasn't gone away, but with a particular focus on home ownership, work on economic development, infrastructure and services, safety, both in terms of sort of criminal issues, but also pedestrian safety, the idea of building stronger sense of community, and then also thinking about the organization itself, our West Bayfront, and how does our West Bayfront continue to sustain this work and support this work in the long term. Next slide. And I'm not going to go through. So the next few slides just kind of break the specifics down and really focus on what does our work plan look like. We kind of took the broad recommendations of the plan and then working with our committees and our board, narrowed it down to what are the actual action items we need to do over the next 5 years. We'll review this, we'll revisit it every year or so, but the items that are in red, which I don't know if those are totally visible on the screen, but in red are those where we really rely on involvement and support of the city, which has been, that support and involvement has been incredible for the last 5 years. I don't think anything on here is new or surprise, and Kathy obviously has been very involved in these conversations. But we just wanted to highlight those areas where this is a partnership with the city. So code enforcement, continuing to work closely so that there's open lines of communication with code enforcement to make sure that problem properties are on code's list and there's attention being paid to them. Traffic, so West 8th Street is an area that we are very interested in supporting businesses along West 8th Street and encouraging and attracting new businesses to that corridor. a piece of that is thinking about how traffic flows. We want to improve the sort of pedestrian environment and also turn 8th Street, which is currently one way from Liberty Street downtown, to 2 ways. Because we think that'll support the businesses along 8th Street and also just make it a more attractive, appealing area for people to visit. And we've already worked closely with the city on 2 grant applications and are working on a 3rd to hopefully make that happen. Local businesses support and marketing is another area. So one of the things that we've talked about is the need to sort of look across the entire West Bayfront community at land use and conduct sort of a land use plan to evaluate whether the current zoning matches kind of what types of development should happen there. So this would be another area where our West Bayfront would be a guinea pig, and we are well situated and excited for that opportunity to kind of work in partnership with the city to do that. Next slide. So here's a lot of red on this slide. So infrastructure and services. So the connections to the waterfront obviously came out very strongly in our conversations with the community, and some areas have already been identified and are progressing in terms of improving the connections between the neighborhood and the waterfront. We've talked to the Port Authority too about some of these ideas, and I think that they're things that are in the works or could be in the works with some additional resources. Sort of generally activating and beautifying the public realms. We want to continue the work that we're doing in the parks. We really want to do more along the lines of enhancing streetscapes, street trees, sidewalks, which, I mean, we could spend a lot of money on fixing sidewalks. There's so much need there, as you know. Thinking about neighborhood signage, which help people understand sort of the community that they're in and give it a little bit more of a personality. And then thinking about how we maintain those parks and public spaces in the long term. There's some ideas that have been floated about how we could do that. I'm just skipping around just to the red items, but happy to stop and answer any questions on these. Improving safety. So we've done a little around installing security cameras, and then working with the neighborhood watch groups is a big piece of our safety strategy, because neighbors that know each other is the most important piece of that puzzle. But we also are working on some crosswalk projects with engineering, and want to continue to keep our eye on 12th Street and how people safely get in and out of the neighborhood as pedestrians and car riders. And then looking after 8th Street is taken care of. We have a lot of one-way streets in the neighborhood that cause confusion. So we want to look at that, whether all of the one-way streets that currently exist should remain that way. Next slide. I think this is the last one. It's a very short few bullet points, but the idea of building community is baked into everything that we do and where we spend a lot of our time. So continuing, events, activities, volunteer opportunities, et cetera. And then thinking about our organization, so the piece with the city is that fantastic data we have on how the property conditions have improved. That's a result of a collaboration and data from the city, working with some Gannon students. So we want to just make sure that we're continuing to obtain that type of data so that we can keep a track of our progress over time, because that's so valuable, so we can understand where to channel resources. I think one more slide, and it's really just a closing slide. So that's very brief summary of kind of where we're headed, and where we hope to collaborate with the city. And I'm happy to answer questions or share any additional information.
That was good.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank
I
you.
don't have any questions, but I just wanted to sort of talk about next steps for the Planning Commission from this launching pad. Again, this is a guinea pig. This is a pilot concept. In the past, we have developed a resolution of support that you have read when you recommend approval of these neighborhood strategic plans. Where I would go from here is to draft that resolution of agreement. This is what we agree to support, and we would attach the draft plan that would be brought back to you for the next meeting, and then you would make a recommendation. This was just an informational meeting,
Right.
So you had a chance to see it. Some of the things that I think that this is so important that this step be taken, is it helps inform the city on what we need to know as we move forward and make decisions. It's so valuable to have this relationship with our neighborhood groups and to have them be a very sound representation of their residents. It makes our job much easier. So this relationship is really critical. I would point out, so for your consideration at next month's meeting, you will have some work to do from if you support this. One of them is the land use study that is in the plan and that Anna has alluded to. We think this would be a great exercise for the Planning Commission to be involved in, and would be a good starting point to really look at the waterfront district and really understand, is that meeting the needs that are and the goals that we have for this community? We've talked, even the few minutes before this meeting started, that a clear or a new look and overview of our zoning ordinance, I think, is well overdue. But this gives us a starting point to look at least one area. Just some other things that I would include in the resolution for your knowledge is we do have some citywide plans that are moving forward that will help with having this information. One is a 12th Street land use and transportation study. It was prompted by the involvement of the county redevelopment in buying some of the sites on 12th Street, but also came out of our Active Erie plan and pushing more traffic to 12th Street. We really saw a need to kind of look at how that corridor is functioning. So we do have funding for that study through PennDOT, and that should begin probably be the end of 2022. But we would incorporate what our West Bayfront is finding into that study and to help influence the outcomes. Another is we will be undertaking a citywide parks and recreation master plan. So we're applying for funding. We do have some CDBG funding. We're applying for DCNR funding to do that citywide plan. So really anything that you see in here that's related to a park, even operations, sustainable funding, those are the types of things that we would include in a master comprehensive plan. And of course, you'll be sort of steering that plan if we get the funding, so you'll be very well versed in that. And so with that, I think that if you have any other questions, I don't have any questions. I feel very familiar with the work that our West Bayfront does, and we'll draft the resolution with those talking points for your next meeting.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on to subdivision and land development.
I don't think,
Ordinance.
Jake was on. I don't know if Jake's still on. I don't have any, do you have an update for, I think it's just a standing item on our.
The last time we met was, we didn't get very
Yeah.
far. We got all of our ideas down on our paper and still putting some things together for you guys to review.
Yes, Ed?
Can I comment on West Side?
Absolutely.
The area of the west side I'm somewhat familiar with, and I've given deeds and information to Ann. A lot of people might not know that Front Street, West Front Street, basically from Wallace on over to Cascade, was state-owned property for over 100, 200 years that nobody knew about, and residents were placed there. And then back a few years ago, the state deeded that bluff area, 26 acres roughly, to the Erie Western Port Authority. And in that deed, there are restrictions that what can be done on the bluffs and what cannot be done on the bluffs, and that public hearings should be held in the areas where development is going to take place so the residents know. So hopefully in the plans that is incorporated, whoever's looking at them, that they do that. Those are the main points, that there are some restrictions, and they're for the betterment of the west side. They're not detrimental. They keep the bluffs fairly clean and undeveloped to the extent that there can be certain amenities added to that. And just so you know, basically, where that boundary line is, if you know where Brugger's house was on 2nd and Liberty, if you come out the back step, that was the south side of Front Street. So in their plans, and has them, there has been a recreational plan and park put in from Plum Street over to Poplar Street that is in the hands of the Port Authority, and I believe and has that also. That was a preliminary plan that the Port Authority had for putting in a nice park for the neighborhood in that corridor of Liberty Street to Plum to Popular. So thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Okay.
I do have one final announcement.
Yes.
For the preservation, and Jason's on our Historic Preservation Commission, the Historic Review Commission. We do have funding to do a citywide preservation plan. We interviewed consultants the past few weeks, and we've selected our top consultant at the next HRC meeting, which is Monday. We will be selecting them. And so I'm looking forward for the HRC and the Planning Commission to work together to develop that plan. It'll be the city's first ever preservation plan, so we're all about the firsts here. So it's exciting, and I think it's going to be a great product, and I'm really excited about the group that we're going to be working with. But I can't say who that is because we got to wait for HRC to announce that. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any other public comment? All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. Thank you for coming. Thank you.